He is a Salesian father. The Salesian Society was founded by St. John Bosco in the early 19th century. It takes its distinctive name from its patron, St. Francis de Sales, the Society of St. Francis de Sales. So Father is a Salesian father, and I think he's the first that we have ever, certainly the first we've had at our convention. And I was reading a little bit about the society and what its particular, I think the word is charism, but their particular focus. Although the real object of the Salesian Society is the Christian education of the young, especially of the poorer and the middle classes, it does not refuse any work of charity for which it has suitable members. In carrying out its principal work, instead of the old punitive or repressive system, it adopts the preventive one, thus promoting confidence and love among the children instead of fear and hatred. And you might remember Father Riley talking to you yesterday about some of the work that he does. I'm reminded that that charism of education of the young is demonstrated very much in the person of Father Riley, who in 1997 opened Key College Independent High School and pioneered flexible education delivery models to help young people who've been living on the streets and in temporary accommodation return to school. And he is also a Chief Executive Officer, as you might have read in your notes, of Youth Off the Streets. He oversees the operation of 20 programs that employ 150 people and involve more than 800 volunteers. Now, Father Riley will tell you, and you will believe, that there is no such thing as a child born bad, but acknowledges that there are bad environments, there are circumstances and families that impact negatively on our young. So I suppose it could be said that Father Riley continues to spend his life picking up the pieces. Ladies and gentlemen, Father Chris Riley.
Thank you for that welcome again. I'm sorry you have to have 2 doses of me. That's a bit much in 2 days. The good thing for you, I will be on a plane in a couple of hours back to Sydney. As much as I love your country and wish I could see it, maybe one day when I'm much, much older and I don't plan to retire, I'm going to die, so maybe I won't ever get across here. I don't want to retire, I just want to die. Not now, 20 years' time's okay. I just wanted to do a couple of business things about Youth of the Streets. There is a newsletter at the back of the church with our details because people have come up to me. And you'll see why I spend as little time away as possible is if you can see my beautiful dog there. She's 66 kilo and a Great Dane dog, and I have a little pup that's 27 kilo. She's gone for 2 months from 7 kilo to 27 kilo, and she'll be as big as this one. So I miss them, and so I always rush home. You have a husband or kids, I have a dog, that's okay. I think a dog's easier most times. And the other thing, just to clarify what I said yesterday, is for those who are here, my mother does talk to me. People were a bit concerned that she might have stuck to her word. I was always very independent, and if she hadn't have spoken to me, that wouldn't have worried me. I would have went on my path and done what I was going to do. But after a few years, and she spoke to me straight away, there was never, one of her worst punishments was silence, I have to say. I got over her silences by the time I was 18. She wouldn't talk to me for a week. And I thought, I'm over your silences. I've been to boarding school. I'm not interested in you threatening me with your silences. I won't be anywhere near you, so they won't worry me. She thought that I was going to a monastery. And her concept of priest was she would never see me again because I would be enclosed in a monastery. Could you imagine me in a monastery? I would be insane, I have to say. Today I want to talk a little bit about faith, and I want to talk about Jesus, and we'll bring it back to my work, obviously, because I think it's really important that our work feeds our faith in some ways and vice versa. When I was a young priest, probably when I was first appointed 26 years ago, I was given the job as deputy principal, and I was really dynamic and enthusiastic. I was young and I was thin and I was active and running, and everything the kids were doing, I was there. A kid died, I'd be there. A kid celebrated something, I'd be there. So whenever anyone came into this college that was a bit weird, I'd be the person that had to deal with it. And so I was there in my office, and I was teaching full-time at the time as well, and someone came in and said, "There's an old man here, could you please see him?" And I said, "Sure." So this guy was brought into my office, and he smelt, and I looked at his feet, and they were bloodied and cut and pussy. And I'm no good when it comes to gunk. I just don't like to be touched by anything. I just don't like it at all. Blood, pus, whatever it is. I just really like to be very much distant from all that sort of gunk. And this guy looked at me and said, "Father, I want you to bandage my feet." And I looked at him and thought, "You're kidding." And I said to him, "I will go and get the nurse to do this for you, because she's good at this sort of stuff." And off I went. He grabbed me and said, "No, I want you to bandage my feet." And I said, "I can't do that." And he insisted, and he said, "I want you to bandage my feet." And I was young and enthusiastic and idealistic. I thought, how am I going to do this? And I just lifted my eyes up and said, "God, please help me so that I give this man dignity." And when I looked up and then looked down again, I didn't see the bloody feet. It was just an amazing experience. I didn't see them. And I looked up at him, and his eyes were bright and alive. And I thought, I have met Jesus Christ. This man has been brought to me to teach me a lesson. And I very easily bandaged this man's feet. And he walked off, never seen him again. And in my own mind, I guess, is he real? Was he a message directly from Christ? And I guess, yes, he was real. And yes, he was a message from Christ. And just seeing even I don't know the official titles, I'm not very good with religious things, I have to say, because I don't live in religious circles, but seeing Mother Teresa's sisters here is just really, she would have inspired me to do that, because she would have touched those feet without even hesitating. And I need to look to heavens to be inspired to do that. And I guess I learnt then that when you commit yourself to the poor, you commit yourself totally. And you not only commit yourself to give, but you in fact receive much more back from them. And even this weekend, I'm thinking, I'm crazy flying over here, talking to you people. Well, I'm too busy for this. But once again, I'm taught a message that I get more from you than you will ever get from me. And the people have walked past me today and said, "We will pray for you," or those Australians who are here or New Zealanders who heard me in Australia will say, "We will have prayed for you since the first day we met you." What that means for me is that I'm kept safe, because I do take on people who hurt children. I do speak out, and these are people who have great evil and can be extremely dangerous. And I have no fear because so many people pray for me. It's not I don't have fear because I'm stupid. I don't have fear because I believe in the power of prayer. And I also know that there will be people out there who judge me because of who I work with. And again, a story, I use stories all the time because that's how I learn. I learn through the experiences with the people I encounter. And when I was working on the streets of in Central Town Hall, again, as I said yesterday, with the most violent, aggressive kids in our country that I clicked with very significantly. But there were certainly trying times for working with these kids. And on one occasion, and part of their problem was they were alcoholics and also heroin users. And all of a sudden I was talking to a group, and one of our kids, a 19-year-old, went rushing to someone on the streets, an innocent passerby, and assaulted him, grabbed him in a headlock and threw him to the ground. I get physically sick when I see violence. I can't cope with violence. I can't watch boxing, I can't watch wrestling, I can't watch kids fight. I always have to fix that. And so I went to grab this kid, and me being very weak and puny compared to him, luckily the other kids did that as well. And we released the passerby, who was really quite hurt. And I just said, I'm really sorry, you didn't deserve this. And I just kept apologising. And the kid who had attacked him, who was very drunk, lay on the ground. You can imagine, well, I don't know if you can imagine actually, if this is the centre of your city, then there's not much happens here. But in Sydney, you've got people filling the city on a Friday night. And this kid lay on the ground, swearing and abusing everyone who came past. And I knelt down with him and was trying to talk to him, saying, please, will you shut up? Stop this. And I would have said other things, not swearing, I don't swear, but I certainly get very cranky with them. Saying to him, will you stop this nonsense? Wake up to yourself. This guy did not deserve this. And a man came up to me and he looked down and he touched me on the shoulder and he said, you are demeaning yourself, Father. Please get up. And I looked up to him and said, this is who and what I have chosen. These are the ones I will spend my life with, and many will judge me and call me a fool, or will say that I'm being demeaned by the people I associate with. And if you look very closely to our tradition and our story, Jesus Christ is our example for that. It's not something I have discovered, it is something that I have hooked onto because Jesus Christ taught me to do that. To align ourselves with the most marginalised means we will be judged. To speak out for the most marginalised means also that some will judge us harshly. And we have to, in a sense, keep moving ahead without being deterred by that. I just want to say something about this community. Yesterday I spoke about the trouble kids are in this country, in every country. And an elderly man, I don't know how old he was, he might have been 81, I'm not sure of that, he came up to me and he said, what could I do to make a difference? And I said, plenty. And he said, but I'm old. I said, who cares if you're old? Kids don't make that judgment. They will reach out to an open face and an open heart. They will see that. And he then went on to say, but they have been abused by men. Won't they reflect that back on me and be suspicious of me? And yes, maybe they will be, until they capture that openness and sense of trust. But they will never learn about goodness until they actually see good people reach out to them. If they are locked into their own experience, only their own experience, in cases of girls, for example, that we deal with, and the sexual assault, the domestic violence that they undergo, the rape, all that stuff, if they understand that males are all like that, then they will never find that hope that we talk about. And what we have to do is, to people who are suspicious and who have been hurt by the very people who should have loved them, we have to allow them to get close to us so they will learn that in fact not all people, and in fact most people, are not like the ones they have experienced in their life. And that's crucial. And I say this to you, you need to reach out to your community, wherever it is. I'm not telling you to go and work for street kids, but wherever your community is hurting, we've got to reach out. Our young people, as I said yesterday, we need to empower them to give to others through service learning. I did also mention I was going to speak about multiculturalism, racism today, and that is in a sense fairly radical in Australia. It's not, again, they're not my ideas. If anyone is interested in going through this, the understanding, it's called Healing Racism, and you'll find that on the internet. It's a worldwide movement. And it's only in the last year or so that I've begun speaking about it, and there's been obviously a lot of criticism. In one case, it was just identifies how clearly the racism is alive, and I'll say this, and it's one of the worst bit of hate mails I've ever received. And it said to me, I was working in Macquarie Fields, and I got this email from a person there saying, what an absolute joke you are. What a fraud. God's work like hell. You look after the black kids only. And as far as we're concerned, it's the black kids that have destroyed this suburb. They rob, they steal, and you think you're doing a fantastic job with them. They are like cabbages. They cannot be taught anything. And as far as I'm concerned, yes, I'm a racist, and they all should be put in a helicopter and dropped out over the ocean. And I'm thinking, how can anyone have so much hate? How can anyone have that much hate? And I began to think about multiculturalism, and as I said, I went into a town where there is deep racism, as there is everywhere in Australia. And I said, as I said yesterday, that multiculturalism as a strategy to bring people together doesn't work. And I'll explain that why. It's not just a cliche like that. When you celebrate multiculturalism, and I'll go to the Aboriginal community or the island community and I'll talk to them, and they'll say, this is how we see multiculturalism on a particular day, where they will listen to our music, eat our food, watch us dance, and then tell us to go back and pick their fruit. And so I challenge this town saying, you think you're multicultural in that you celebrate these days, and you do, but you don't celebrate them as part of your community. You cannot get close to someone by starting with what makes them different. You can only get close to someone when you embrace the oneness of the human race. And rather than saying, let's celebrate what makes us different on one day, I believe the only way we can affect a change in healing racism is by saying a couple of things. One, there is only one human race on this earth. We are all brothers and sisters. And the greatest, most evil thing perpetrated by man is the whole concept of races. I did get an email after that one as well saying people were bred to be in certain places, and I don't reply to that hate mail, but I felt like saying, well, you're the first to be deported and you'll probably go back to Europe or Ireland. It was the Aboriginal people who are First Nation here, and it's their land according to your sort of thing. And it's not something that we can legislate. It's not something the government can say, we will celebrate the oneness of human race. It is person by person. I look into the eyes of every human being and say to them, one by one, you are my brother, you are my sister. And we have to stop. I don't know if it's like that in New Zealand, but some of the things about our African community, for example, we have professors coming out saying they are like monkeys, they're oversexed. And I'm thinking, what hatred we generate, what absolute hatred we generate by these stereotypes and judgments that simply are not true. And I really ask you to, I think this is one of the greatest things that we need to heal in our world, is the fact that we judge others. And I don't know if you've ever seen a movie called Freedom Writers. If you haven't, find it. You do have DVDs here, do you? Sorry. It didn't last in our cinemas very long, but a powerful statement about how you bring together classrooms full of all sorts of kids by asking them not to think about what's happened to them, and they actually do an exercise where the kids have to walk to the line. And after the 10th time of walking to the line, because they had someone in their family shot, everyone had walked to the line, they eventually started looking up and thinking, you're Chinese. I'm black African American. You've had someone killed. I've had someone killed. You've had someone sexually assaulted. I've had someone sexually assaulted. We are the same. We are brothers. We are sisters. And I just think we need to really attack that in a very powerful way. I believe, and I guess all faiths believe this, I don't know how to say this properly, I'm not a Jew, but one of the best moments I've had, and I'll just give you pictures because it can happen. On Christmas Day, I went to Macquarie Fields where I had 300 people to give a meal to, a hot 3-course meal on a basketball court. And when I went there, one of our volunteers rushed to me and said, I'm Rabbi so-and-so. Rabbi? And here are all my people, 12 of our volunteers. And this was just such a fantastic image for me. And I had spoken in their tabernacle, in their synagogue a few months beforehand, and had built this relationship. And I just said to them, this is the greatest Christmas I've ever had. Seeing you guys, I did say to them, are you okay with cutting that ham? They said, absolutely. We can cut ham as much as you like, Father, we just won't eat it. And so that was an incredible symbolism. A few months before Christmas, I again had the privilege of being on a stage, and because I had received the 2006 Human Rights Medal, I had to present the 2007 Human Rights Medal and the major awards. And as I stood there, the major community award was given to a 30-year-old Aboriginal. So here he was standing next to a Catholic priest. The next person to get the individual award was a Muslim who had actually got a surf life saving group together at Cronulla. For those who don't know, there was a big fight between the Muslims and the Cronulla lifesavers. So he decided he would get young Muslims to be lifesavers working alongside. He got that, and so he had an Aboriginal, Muslim, and the next one to get the highest award that I'd received the year before was a Jew. And I just looked thinking, Aboriginal, Jew, Muslim, Catholic, we can do this. We can work together. We can acknowledge and accept the goodness of all people. And I guess they say, Tikkun Olam is a Jewish saying that says, it is part of me. I am under an obligation to make the world a better place. The same with us, and the same with the Muslim theory and religion. I believe that you cannot have a Muslim terrorist. It's like saying you can have in Ireland, remember us, it was only a few years ago, Catholic terrorists, no such thing. If you're a terrorist, you leave your faith. You cannot be a killer and a Catholic. You cannot be a Muslim and kill. And I think we need to get that really clear. And the invitation I give is that we are here to make this world a better place. And the old saying is, if not us, who? If not now, when? And I believe that ours is the untold story of a faith, and I talked about the Christian who used Jesus as a tool to spread hate. I believe our faith is not that. I believe that our faith bridges, not divides, accepts, not judges, and nourishes, not crushes. And millions of people around this world, and I'm sure you people too, are anchored and guided by a faith that simply, and as I said, one of my heroes, and I was looking, so sisters, by the way, if you can give me a free book, the latest book on Mother Teresa where she talks about her doubt, I'm after that one. I was hoping it'd be up the back, but I'll go on the internet to get that. It was a simple faith. It was a lived faith. It was, we feed the hungry, we visit prisoners, we work for the wounded, we protect abused and neglected kids. And I ask yourselves this question, and I encourage you to answer this. When we see tragedy, our response should be, what should we do? All my new works over the last 2 years have been seeing tragedy and saying, what should I do? I have no idea what I should do, but I just get on a plane and I go and do it. Arche was the example of that, where I went over there and the headline read back in Sydney, we want aid, not religion, because a newspaper journalist had gone to a radical Muslim and said, there's a Catholic priest in your town. And I said, okay, is there a problem with a Catholic priest being in the town? And there seemed to be a bit of a problem. But we then got into partnership with 60 million Jews. Muslims. Muhammadiyah, the second largest group in Indonesia. So we became a very powerful force there, where we set up, the first thing we built was a mosque. We handed it over to the Indonesian, the Achinese people, their psychologists, their workers, their spiritual leaders. And our kids, when it came to the national exams, were the only ones that passed, because we set up a place that was home to them. If we had sent the Australian volunteers in, it would have been a disaster. We employed the psychologists, the local people, and we really had, as I said, great success. And when I was over there, again, great pictures. I just think, I'm such a flawed human being, but God still believes in me, and that's the amazing thing. I get these pictures. And when I brought some of the Achinese kids out, I was standing next to the Prime Minister, John Howard, and a little Muslim girl was standing next to me. She was about 18, I guess. She didn't look that. And as we were waiting for the photo, I'd never spoken to her. She put her head on my shoulder and looked up and said, "You're my father." And I'm thinking, I wish the world could see that I'm always dressed like this. That's someone else's. A lot of questions have been asked about my collar. This is all I wear, and yes, I do wear this out on the streets, and it does keep me very safe. People really still respect the clergy, even though some of us have really stuffed up pretty badly. But to just see her say, I don't care about this, and I don't care about my religious gear either, heart to heart, you've saved me, you've given me a place. And when I was there a month ago to sign the building plans, She came up, and I thought she wouldn't even remember me. And she didn't let go of my arm, and she had come from university just to see us. And I'm looking at her thinking, and when she was getting a photo, she was just grabbing the side of my pants. And I said to someone, this girl really really sees me as her father. Her father and mother were killed, and we, in a sense, saved her. And I just think so much good can be generated around the world just by not looking at what makes us different. And when I went over there, I said to Mohammedia, my partners, I'm not interested in bringing my religion here. I just want us to put all our differences aside, to concentrate on those kids who have no one, to give them a home and a sense of stability. So I guess what I'm saying, and Macquarie Fields, I talked about the riots, Griffith, I talked about the racism there, and another little town we went into, we found 40 girls under the age of 14 in a town of 2,000 people. Can you get the figures? 2,000 people, 40 girls under the age of 14 who got pregnant to get the baby bonus, which is a $5,000 payout in Australia. So we went in there, had the second highest sexual assault rate in the state. We also put truck drivers in those towns on notice, saying, we are watching you pick up these young girls to use as prostitutes. We will take photos of you and we will have you prosecuted. And we will give messages out like that. So what I'm saying to us as Christians, what we have to do is, when we see tragedy, our response should be, what should I do? Or I like to say about us as Christians, watch my feet, not my mouth. Don't listen to what I would like to do. Watch my feet take me to a place to do something that Christ has committed me to do. And so I ask you to watch your feet as well. I said these things to the Cardinal when I was giving an address, and he's actually quoted me, so he must be okay with these. I said, Socrates, does everyone know Socrates? He says, the unexamined life is not worth living. I said to the Cardinal, that's nonsense. It's a lot of garbage. The unreflected life isn't worth living. He got it wrong. And I said this, the uncommitted life isn't worth living. The uncommitted life is not worth living. I then had a crack at Descartes. I almost failed my philosophy, so I hate philosophers. And I had to stay back one time because I failed an exam and I wasn't allowed to go to camp where you're looking after kids. And I am always where kids are. So to be told, no, you're staying Christmas and you're going to study harder and you're going to have this special exam. So I stayed. I say cheated too, don't tell anyone I said that. It was the only time I've ever cheated, but when you're talking about philosophy, I'm thinking, I can't get these concepts. It was epistemology. I couldn't even say the word at the time. But Descartes said this, and I remember my philosophy teacher saying very pompously, cogito ergo sum. Does anyone know what that means? I think, therefore I am. And again I said to the Cardinal, what rubbish. It should be amo ergo sum. I love, therefore I am. And I think we as Christians need to embrace those sorts of concepts. And for me and for the kids I work with, and I know for you, service grounds me. When I do something for others, I feel right in my faith. I believe that the poor, the angry and the outcasts have led me to understand my calling as I have never understood it before. And when we reflect on faith, I'll just leave you with these thoughts. What is faith? Faith is being grasped by the power of love. Faith is recognising that what makes God is infinite mercy. And as you have your feast day today, which someone said, happy feast day, and I said, what feast is it? And they said, divine mercy. I said, okay, I don't mix in church circles much, but I certainly have taken information because it may be something very special. God is infinite mercy, not infinite control, not power, but love unending. And if he is that, we are called to be that. So we as Christians cannot be controlling, wanting power. We acknowledge the courage such faith requires, and we boldly proclaim. This is the last thing Conservatives want us to say. I love the recklessness of faith. I love getting on a plane and going to somewhere where I have no idea what the outcome's going to be, because I believe in the recklessness of faith. First you leap, and then you grow wings. God gives you those wings. I was giving a talk, and I'll go through this, and I'm a teacher, so I always finish on time. Don't go over time for anything. Kids walk out on you normally. I was giving a talk to a group of young people about the cross and the World Youth Day. And I'll just read you one page of what I said to them. The church, I said, in Australia, and also you put it in New Zealand, has much to say about humanity. Through the lens of the cross, I said, we must see the communities living in poverty in Australia equal to the poorest third world countries, our Aboriginal communities. We must fight through the lens of the cross for the abused and sexually assaulted kids, as this is the most urgent health crisis in our community. And as I said, in New South Wales daily, 660 young people are notified at risk every day. Welfare would say probably a third of kids actually notify or report. So we're really looking at something like 1,800 kids being abused every day. And I used examples of what had gone on within a few weeks prior to that talk. And I said, through the lens of the cross, we must cry for 7-year-old Shillelagh, who was found starved to death in her home. At the age of 7, she was found to be 9 kilo. Her socks were welded to her feet because they hadn't been changed. There was excrement and rotten food and rats in that bedroom. And I said, through the lens of the cross, we must hold her close. And I've gone on further to say, we take a tough line. Never let those parents go near another kid, ever. And a journalist said to me, but what if they breed again? I said, if they go and have a child again, I will have a social worker at the bed of delivery, and I will take that child away from them right away. These people will never have children again if I have anything to do about it. In the same week, I said, through the lens of the cross, we will pray for 2-year-old Dean, whose body was found stuffed in a suitcase and dumped in a duck pond. We will pray and hold close the 8-year-old girl who was sold by her father to another man for sexual services for the price of 1 can of beer. We must acknowledge the past wrongs to our Aboriginal brothers and sisters, and I call your people and my people First Nation, understanding the long-term impact of the stolen generation, not simply removing kids who were at risk from troubled families, but in Australia, instituting legislation which required all mixed bloods to be removed. We must acknowledge the invasion of this country, for it was not an empty land, as we claim. It was inhabited. And I went on to say, and I actually agreed to be an Australia Day ambassador this year, and I've avoided that, but I thought, I won't be asked a second time, but I am going to say this. I am going to say on Australia Day that this day in Australia, for 4% of our population, is Invasion Day. And I will say that I believe Australians can be blamed for an act of genocide, because the removal of half-caste kids was an attempt to breed the blackness out of our nation. And we have to acknowledge that. And the beauty, I think, of Australians nowadays is if they're told the truth and not blamed and all that, but understand, they will begin to see the pain that we've inflicted on our First Nation people. And I went on then to say, through the lens of the cross, we must challenge embedded racism in our society. And rather than using multiculturalism as a tool to bring us together, each of us must look every person we meet in the eyes and embrace each other as brother and sister. We must strive to embrace the oneness of humanity. There is only one race, the human race, and we must expose the evil of the very concept of race. That lady's gone to sleep. I'm very boring, aren't I? I had to break. I was getting too serious, so I needed you. So will you come over to Australia? You can be my prop, because I need props to bring a bit of a thing. Sorry? No, I did. I'm happy to answer any questions if people have got that. I can talk on. I do have a conclusion, but at this time, if anyone wants to ask any questions, I will go through a few commercials. The books out there, the number one book is sold out. I'm sorry about that. I thought I'd be taking a caseload back, to be honest. Some people have paid for and ordered, and were worried I wouldn't sign them. I'll take the list of people who have paid for those. I will sign them on Monday, and they will be here to you if you have good mail services here by the end of the week, probably. So I will do that. There is that newsletter at the back of the church which gives you a few concepts, and that story is a very powerful story. It's about a gay kid that I came across, a kid who was absolutely abused. And one of the problems working with street kids is when a kid says he's gay, you're not really sure if it's linked to his abuse. You're not really sure if he's been abused so much that he believes that it's his fault because he's gay. And this is a kid that went through incredible abuse, but now is working as a psychiatric nurse. And when he rang me from Wales, I was just so pleased that this kid had made it because he'd been through so much. So that newsletter is there. There's also a group I would really like to support, because I am in New South Wales, but we also run orphanages in East Timor, the Philippines, Tanzania, and Aceh. And there's a group starting up in your town called the Trading Circle, which sells products from those countries, but gives it real currency. And I actually bought 6 of the angels myself last night, because for Christmas I get my personal staff together, and I don't know, all my personal staff are women, and the majority of my staff, I guess 70% of my organisation is women, so I give them an angel every Christmas to thank them for the work that they actually do for me. So if you do contact the Shepherd Sisters who are out there and may be able to help with the running of that centre that they have there as volunteers. I think what you've done here is amazing, so I congratulate you on having a Eucharistic Congress or Convention. My order used to run one at our school where we get 100,000 people, but it descended into an Italian picnic. And eventually they disbanded the convention side, which I thought was a real great loss. We should have tried to swing that around to make it a positive thing, because once you lose something like that, getting 100,000 people, you'll never get it back, certainly in that sort of way. And I also like to congratulate John and Beth Porteous for doing this with the Monsignor. I think it's very powerful. The Knights of the Southern Cross, I discovered you. The Knights of the Southern Cross. And do you have Catholic Women's League here? I call them the geriatric mafia. No one will take them on. And they're the only 2 groups that I will never say no to. If they ask, I'll be there. I believe I'm still alive because of their faith in me and their prayer. They dress me also. They'll say, if you need anything else, and with my 25th anniversary, they got it a year wrong, but anyway, I live with that. It was last year, not this year, but I got a beautiful chasuble from them. And I went into the hall on that night, and this lady who was 94 came up with her daughter, who was a nun, but who was at home looking after her mum and dad before he died. And the daughter said to me, "Father, a few years ago my dad said, my son will have a 25th anniversary soon." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, he saw you as his son." And I knew whenever I walked into a room, although he was blind, as soon as he heard my voice, his face lit up. And I'm thinking, how blessed am I to have people who believe in me like that. And I just ask you, I don't want you to clap for me after I speak. I do want you to pray for me. I don't need claps, I do need prayer. I do need people to hold me in their hearts so that I can deliver my work with great courage. And everyone else who works for the marginalised and disadvantaged. I just want you to finish up on a religious note. As I said, I'm not very religious normally, but I just thought this is a group of people who are very similar to the everyday people. John said to me, "You have a lot of corporate supporters." I said, "No, not really." And he mentioned a guy, and I said, well, if that guy pretends he helps me, he's simply lying. One day when I was really desperate, and he had got me to a certain area, guaranteeing to fund it, and I was in desperate need, and I went into his house that had servants everywhere, a movie theatre as big as this, an incredible pool, everything. And he did, and I was there saying, the thing you want me to run is struggling for money. He didn't mention it. He showed me his glamorous house, and I was almost being sick of his glamorous house. And at the end of it, as I got into a cab, he said, and I'll give you $20,000. I'm thinking, how weak. You could give me $1 million without blinking. And so how do I survive without corporates? I survive by people like you believing in me. The women who are on pensions, who every time they get an opportunity will send me $5. And I believe, and I keep saying to Australia, they are the real heroes of this land. They are the real heroes of Youth of the Streets, because they see, and the majority of my support group are women, and I think it's because of the kid thing. They relate to the kids, and as I said, those sort of people like you are the heroes. I just want you to close your eyes as I finish, and maybe just place your hand on the shoulder of the person on your right-hand side. And close your eyes, and I want you to pray for that person. And if you don't want to touch each other, that's fine. Just pray for that person. And I want you to pray in this way. Jesus Christ calls us to witness to God's love throughout the world. Ours is a faith. The way we exemplify it, the way we present it by example, ours is a faith that bridges and doesn't divide, that accepts, that doesn't judge, that nourishes and not crushes. The person I pray for at the moment, I pray that you will be someone who brings people together, someone who accepts without judging, and someone who nourishes with God's love. And we make this prayer through Christ our Lord. And again, if you just pray for me, and as I said, I don't want to be clapped after this. If you just pray that my work, and maybe the sisters here too, that our work is blessed by the goodness of your prayers. And as you pray for me, I'll give you these words, which I think are the most amazing prayer I've ever read. They were found scribbled on the wall of a concentration camp in Germany. So I guess the person who wrote these prayers, I hate myself. We should turn that off. You have to watch me like that. I thought if you're up there you couldn't even see me, but they're forcing that on you. But it was found scribbled on the wall of a concentration camp in Germany, and I presume the person who wrote this prayer soon was killed, as they would have seen 6 million Jews killed through the Holocaust. And I really believe if we want to understand what happened to our First Nation people, and what I believe is post-traumatic distress, that it goes through generations, look at the Holocaust. We get it there. We don't get it with our First Nation people, but it's the same thing. In this tragic environment, they wrote this, and I say this every day, and maybe it'll be useful for you. I believe in the sun, even when it isn't shining. I believe in love, even when I do not feel it, and I believe in God, even when He's silent. And we make this prayer through Christ our Lord. And through the lens of the cross, we must cry for justice. And let all who watch us say, see how the Christians love each other. Remember, don't clap. Thank you, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those in the 3 minutes I've got. I will be outside if people wanted their book signed, and as I said, I will sign and send any that have got names there. I'll do that personally when I get home, and I'm in my Sydney office tomorrow morning, so we'll get it done tomorrow.